You mentioned about your mother's feelings about seeing you playing alone.
Yeah, bothered her a lot. She said she wouldn't have minded to see me go too, because playing alone was no fun. I guess that sort of made me grow up earlier or something. Then when I was 10, my sister was born, and I didn't need any more than she.
Mm-hmm. The sister that or the Christmas that Irene died, tell about that.
Oh, yes. My mother going to church with a black taffeta petticoat and no skirt over it. And getting out of the sled, got to Mass, midnight Mass. She decided, she looked down, my God, where's my skirt? And then we had the very first pew in the church.
Did she have a long coat?
No,
Oh.
a jacket, short hip length jacket. And you stand right behind me, walk right tight behind me up the aisle.
And what did you get from Santa Claus? Or tell about
that Christmas?
What kind of a Christmas was that?
We didn't have a tree. Well, it didn't feel like a tree, a nice room. It was only me, and I got a pair of rubbers. Overshoes or rubbers, they got for Christmas. And Santa Claus didn't come in the house, he put them outside.
Outside?
On a shelf on the porch.
And then we wanted to talk about your school days at Shink School and what your playmates.
Shink School?
Well, how you didn't tell about how you didn't spend the whole school year.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, my father being a contractor, family went right along with him. I would spend. School would start in September, all over. And I started near to the nearest school that we were living. We had a home somewhere nearby, and go to school there for a couple of months. Then maybe my father would have a job somewhere else, or go to that school. Mm-hmm. But then when it got really cold, then I came back to us. So I missed a couple, 2, 3 months.
And you said that went on through your entire grade school?
Until I was in 8th grade. And then Mother said she is going to go to her own school for 1 whole year. And that's what I did.
Well, how did you manage that? Did Grandpa not?
Grandpa, of course, was living.
Your grandpa?
My grandfather. Mm-hmm. And then she got a hired girl to come and do the cooking and take care of me.
Oh.
Well, and I can't remember exactly, but
And you stayed with your grandfather then?
Grandpa, no. Oh, sure. And I can't remember whether we had Marilla. I think some of the time we might have had her with me. So I could take care of her when I wasn't in school. And I can remember the girl we had. She was my music teacher was a Davis, Lillian Davis, and this younger sister was the one that came to be with me, be with us.
Okay.
Grandpa and I.
So, that reminds me of you mentioned how you had a cow that you would take
around with us. Sure. The cow, would eat the grass anywhere, and to milk her, all we needed to do, or all I needed to do, was take a piece of bread and sugar on it, and the cow would come and eat the bread and sugar, and then she'd stand and let us milk her, or let me milk her, or whoever.
And
I think I did most of the milking at that time, but I was about 11 years old or better then, so I could milk the cow.
And what was the cow's name?
Gypsy. My grandfather named her Gypsy because she traveled with us. They'd, they'd put a halter on her and tie her to the back of the wagon, and the team would go and the cow would have to follow. So, and they never went too fast. A loaded down hay wagon.
And so then you would live in rented housing?
Wherever we could find a place.
Or even a tent, as you said.
Well, yeah, but we only lived in a tent once.
I suppose the houses weren't the greatest then.
Well, they were old homes. Well, I can remember one house. It was in the town of Rockland, down near where Lincoln School was, in the town of Rockland. The Lincoln School was built on that same property. But when she went in there, it had been where beet weeders lived.
Were these like migrant workers
They
that
were migrant
came
workers, yeah.
up from the south?
That's right. And so she went in, and it had wallpaper all over it. She took a piece of wallpaper off, and it was full of bed bugs.
Oh my gosh, I remember that story.
Full of bed bugs. And so she said, I'll never move into that house that way. I'm going to go in and I'm going to take that paper off and I'm going to whitewash the whole thing. Whitewash and kill them. And that's what we did. Whitewash the whole inside of it. And lived there. And then, while we were living there, I came down with smallpox.
Oh, that's the time.
That's the time. I came down with smallpox, but I happened to be the only one in our school district that had smallpox. The rest of them had chickenpox. But we had the doctor, and it was smallpox. And Marilla was a little, 2 years old. She could just talk. And we had an iron bed, I can remember, and there was a little chip of the white paint or whatever, enamel was off, and it looked just exactly like a chicken. And she called it chickypox. But old Dr. Linfesty and Mrs. Robert Rhine, the young Robert's mother, Dad had the men, we had the men, and they didn't dare stay with us. So she offered to take the men, to bed them down and to feed them while we were quarantined in that house.
Oh, that was the house.
That was the house.
The whitewashed house. And you said this was about the time that you graduated from grade school also.
Well, then not that year. I think it was in the next year or so. And then that took care of it. I didn't go bridge building that
year. And then just as you were about ready to start high school, what happened?
Well, I had an attack of appendicitis. I had to have surgery. So I didn't start school, even high school, on time. It was about, I don't know, remember whether they used to take more time than they do now. I think it was almost a month before I started high school.
But while you were in the hospital,
oh yes, that gave me an idea. I loved the nurse. She was such a sweet thing. That gave me the idea that that's what I wanted to do. So in 2 years, I could go into nurses training, and I did.
Oh, at that time, you knew that you had to have 2 years of high school to go?
Well, yeah.
Oh, I see.
Went to high school for 2 years, and
okay.
then I went into nurses training.
Well, when you went to high school, you had to board
Yes.
in town, because at that time you were living out in the town of Rockland.
In the town of Rockland. And go in on Monday morning, or maybe Sunday evening, whichever is most convenient, and then stay until Friday night and come home. They had to come and meet me or take me. We didn't have a car.
Well, who did you stay with?
Mrs. Clark, Mrs. Michael John Clark. And, that year I had quite a lot of trouble too.
What kind of trouble?
My father had to have stomach surgery.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Got very sick, and
Did he have an ulcer?
he had to have surgery. He had an ulcer to begin with, and there was an ulcer right at the opening into the intestine. And so, Dr. Weber Kelly operated on him, and he was fine after it. But then and then Mother went in for surgery. That's it, just after Dad got home and was feeling better, then she went in for surgery.
Well, did you have to come back home from school to take care of things?
Then took Marilla to Mrs. Clark's with me, took care of her as much as I could while I was in school, and come home on Friday night, do the washing, do some baking, getting them ready for the next week at home.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was grown up, and I wasn't.